Hi, I'm Brett, and I've developed a new, simple, modern spiritual philosophy. And in this series of videos, I'd like to tell you all about it. So stay tuned, and if you like what you're hearing, tell other people about it, comment, ask me questions, and we'll go forward from there. Thank you very much. Hi, and welcome back to You Know Yourself with me, Brett. I explained in the last episode that I am going to be trying to stress test some of what I've come up with, including some of possibly the vulnerabilities that exist within You Know Yourself, some of the potential possible contradictions that need owning and addressing so that we can talk about these openly. And I might have said, and I think I did say, that I'd be doing that in a way that I thought was potentially a little bit innovative. It may not be, you decide. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm trying to use some AI. I kind of don't want to admit that because I know that AI can be very divisive. So I'm going to lay a few things down first of all. One, I'm using it as a sounding board. I don't use it to come up with new ideas or to write content for me or create artificial images or mainly new ideas. I don't have it bring up new ideas for me. I try to use it as a tool, which I think I'm a sort of a bit of a convert, if I'm going to be honest. So at first I was not interested in AI at all. Over the last sort of 3-4 months, I've been using it for other projects and have realized that it is a tool that can be used if we know how to use it, if I know how to use the tool. And I'm sort of slowly learning how to use the tool of AI. I don't think it's something that we should, or that I should become reliant on. And I don't think I'm relying on it or becoming reliant on it. I'm conscious of the idea that it is a relatively useful sounding board for me to bounce things off and to get some sort of reply that might sharpen my perspective or maybe even make me think about things I hadn't thought of before. It doesn't always do it right. I sometimes have to re-prompt it or think about... I mean, that's the other thing that's very useful about it. It makes me have to think about the questions I'm asking it. So, this next series of episodes that are going to come out do have a little bit, hopefully, of a formula to them, which sort of I developed. It's an obvious formula. And maybe formulas have their use, and maybe, again, it's not good to depend on them. I needed some sort of structure. So I define what the vulnerability or what the issue is, try and sharpen it, and then sounding it off against the AI and getting it to come up and getting it to sort of argue back with me. I look at the for and against argument of whatever proposition it is I'm putting forward, or whatever opinion or thought or concept that I want to try and work with. And then maybe come up with a resolution, maybe not. But as always, the invite is to you to come up with your own resolution and your own thoughts and your own ideas about it. Maybe having had that input of the for and against. And that very same formula is applied to this episode, where I'm going to talk about the idea of using AI as a soundboard, as a tool, as a sparring partner for what I'm doing. So here's the idea. Is me using AI as a sparring partner, as a sound off, as a sounding board, as a bouncing off tool, is me using AI as a tool going against anything I've said in You Know Yourself, which, as always, was only ever supposed to be and no, only is something. You Know Yourself wasn't created with an objective in mind, as will be addressed in some upcoming episodes. You Know Yourself was something that I wrote and then looked back on and went, oh, I think I've got something here. I had some questions I was answering, and as I was answering the questions, more questions were coming up, and I was distilling it down and down and down. So is using AI as a tool to use as a sparring partner, to use as something that might bring up points that I hadn't thought about, is that something that's sort of against anything in You Know Yourself? So let's look at the idea that it is sort of against some of the principles of You Know Yourself. And if I'm looking over here, it's because I've got some notes on my laptop over here. AI knows. No, okay. So before we go any further, I'm aware that I'm going to use some language which some people might find challenging. I don't know what other language to use right now without having to explain every single word, and that's just going to take forever. So if I say that the AI knows or understands or thinks, then I'm aware that those are maybe not accurate words, but they are very quick words that I can use, which I acknowledge going forward that they are not entirely accurate. Does AI know? Does it have consciousness? Does it understand? I don't know. I'm not sure if anybody knows, really. I'm aware that we might be opening Pandora's box, but that's a whole different conversation to have, which I'm not having here. What I'm having is a conversation about, is it an appropriate tool for me to use, or is it me just sort of outsourcing, when really some of the ideas put forward in You Know Yourself is or are that we have all the tools that we need. They're just not exercised because of the society that we live in. And so some of the sort of propositions put forward against the idea of using AI is that it is sort of trained towards consensus. It's trained, it only has the knowledge of everything that's been said or done before. So it sort of moves towards the familiar. It moves towards what already exists. And if I'm trying to develop something, or if I think I'm putting forward something that's original, if there is indeed anything original in the postmodern world in which we live in, it may not be useful to present it to AI, because the AI might try and squeeze it and squash it and make it fit into something that already exists, into existing paradigms. There is also the reality that AI is quite often programmed or created in such a way that it's supposed to be flattering. It's supposed to reinforce the things that you're saying and sort of give you a bit of an echo chamber. So is it actually capable of challenging me? Is it actually capable of presenting something new? It's not a human that has human experiences. It's been programmed by humans, but it doesn't have that uniquely human element of coming up with something completely crazy in left field and out of the box. Possibly. Sometimes it does, but again, we're on the sort of against argument right now. One of the other arguments is it me using my own mind? Then I'm going on, and you know yourself, about how we have this incredible tool called the mind, which is our tool for understanding, and here I am sort of outsourcing some of that, or it would appear that I'm sort of outsourcing some of that, and I totally acknowledge that viewpoint and that opinion, and we'll come back to that. Am I just trying to circumnavigate sitting with things and struggling through them myself? Maybe. You know yourself is about the idea, or has some elements of the idea of we are very quick to outsource our everything, outsource our provision of knowledge and ideas, and I'm potentially doing that by using the tool of AI as a soundboard. Is it also just a gimmick? Is me telling you that I'm doing this a gimmick because it is different from anything else you may or may not be hearing in the self-help sphere, or in the spirituality sphere, or in the social philosophy sphere, or the spiritual philosophy sphere? I don't know how many other people are using AI and or acknowledging that they're using AI and or acknowledging that they're using it and presenting their struggles with it. Because this is kind of what I'm doing. I'm kind of saying, listen, I've decided to use the tool of AI, and I acknowledge that there are some plus and minus, some pros and cons about that. But I could either go ahead and use it and not tell you and hide it, or I could go ahead and use it and tell you. I mean, the original plan was to have it voiced and have it almost as a co-presenter, and I tried that and it didn't quite work as well as I hoped it would, unfortunately, because I thought that would have been really interesting to have it sort of almost live recorded with me giving back some of these answers, but yeah, at the moment that didn't work as well as I hoped it would, but that's okay, that's all right. So hence why I have the notes on the PC over here. So those are some of the arguments against that. I'm sort of outsourcing, that it's sort of programmed to be flattering and to be an echo chamber and to reinforce the things I'm saying. And maybe there's some things to do with me that I might end up prompting it in such a way to make sure it gives me the response that I want. And I have to keep an eye on that. So let's acknowledge those. Moving on, perhaps there's some plus sides to this as well. One of the potential plus sides is that, or one of the things to think about, and I'm not asking for you to agree or disagree with the idea of me using AI, I'm just putting it out there and just trying to be sort of upfront about this. One of the things to contemplate is that potentially most thinkers, if I dare call myself a thinker, which of course I think I am, but just a bit of a grandiose claim, isn't it? But every thinker has developed their ideas in some way or another, and has potentially, probably at some point, gone off and found some way in which to bounce their ideas off stuff and get an alternative perspective. And maybe that's a useful, helpful thing to do. And I could bore the pants off my friends, and I think I probably have. And they're not always available in the middle of the night when I suddenly think of something and go, "Oh, hang on a minute! Let's try and follow this thought process through to somewhere and see where it goes." They don't want calls at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm going, what about this idea? Wow, okay, let's. Everyone has bounced their ideas off somebody at some point. Everything, and maybe, dare I say, if they haven't, maybe it would be useful to do that. I was conscious of the idea that I was bouncing stuff around in my own head, and so I was becoming my own echo chamber. And I knew that I knew that I wanted to, and I felt like I wanted to try and bounce it off something or someone other than me. Yeah. Again, on this side of sort of 4, just to reinforce, I am not asking it to come up with new stuff. I am taking it my original thoughts and going, can we sort of have a discussion, if you will, about this? Again, I'm using words that may not be appropriate for AI. Where this is all still new technology. We haven't really developed the language to describe this stuff properly. So if I'm using language where you think AI doesn't have a discussion with you, it just responds to what you're saying, I acknowledge that. I totally acknowledge that. But it's just easier in some ways and quicker for this, because we're already quite long into the video. I'm not going to it and saying, right, now you come up with some ideas. I'm going to the AI and going, I've just thought about this. Here's the idea. And then sometimes it responds, and it responds with stuff where I'm like, yeah, I've already thought of that. Yeah. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that response. That's interesting. What do I think about the response that you've just given me? And then I develop that idea, and so on and so forth. So this is not me outsourcing the original ideas. As I say, this is me trying to use AI as a tool to soundboard against, to bounce things off, to, I try to be conscious and aware of the prompts that I give it. The prompts being based around asking for pros and cons, asking for both sides of the argument, or both sides of the proposition that's being put forward, the for and against. Hence the format of these following episodes, where there is hopefully going to be a for and against segment put forward. There will be, because they're all in the beat sheets, as I'm calling them, or as they've been called. Yeah, so there's a possibility that trying to use a tool that sometimes challenges my thinking and sometimes puts forward interesting opposing points of view that I hadn't thought of, there's a potential that's not outsourcing my thinking. That's me trying to critique my own thinking and try and sharpen it. And I keep coming back to this idea that it's always available. I can always use it, and it's there. And I'm using it for other things as well at the moment. So why not utilize it? And I'm very conscious of, as I say, I'm very conscious of using it as a tool, which is what I think it is. I wonder if there's a propensity with some to rely on it. I don't think I'm relying on it. I'm trying to be conscious of that. I'm trying to be aware of that. I'm trying to be aware of, oh, yeah, I do still need to talk to other real life people and get their feedback on this. But that's not always possible. It's not always possible when I have a thought in the middle of the night, or in the middle of the day when people are at work, or when people are not accessible. So I'm conscious of using it as a tool. So some of the things that it's good at is that it can hold the full framework of what I'm talking about. So when I make reference to, so when I bring forward an idea, it has the whole framework of yourself in its memory, and can apply what new concept, or what counterpoint, or what affirming point I'm putting forward, and it can sort of slot it in and comment on it with reference to the general framework of yourself. It can spot both consistencies and inconsistencies. It can, and it has done, it can say, oh yeah, that fits in because of this, or I wonder if that doesn't fit because of this, or just say outright it doesn't fit because of this. Especially when I prompt it and remind it to push back, which it is capable of, and does relatively well. And it means, like I say, I can sort of stress test ideas really quite quickly. If somebody's not available, I can send them a message and then sit around and then wait for them to return the message. This way I can... So is it quick fix? Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. But I still have time to think about the response that it gives. And I don't have to go with the response that it gives. Sometimes it gives responses and I think, nah, that's not quite right. Or it's missed the point of what I'm saying, and I have to go in and prompt it again and explain. No, that's not. I obviously didn't explain that very well. Let me explain this in a different way. I mean, maybe one of the advantages is it's not hypersensitive, so it doesn't mind getting told, no, you haven't understood that correctly. Let me explain this in a different way. I don't know. What it's bad at as AI, as already mentioned, is that it works from existing paradigms and ideas that have been fed into it, or that it's researched. It's not a human. It can't come up with some crazy connection that sometimes maybe only a human could. Yeah. It doesn't have emotions. It can't factor in the emotional response to what I'm saying. It hasn't lived. It can't factor in lived experience. And I mean, one of the things, funnily enough, it's put here is knowing when to stop. It will keep responding to my prompts no matter what. Whereas a human friend might go, do you know what? That is enough for tonight. It's late and we need to stop this now. So is there a resolve to this? Is there an answer to the question of, is it appropriate for me to use AI? Maybe there is a resolve, maybe there isn't. Maybe I think I keep coming back to this word tool because I think that's the best way to describe it. I'm trying to use it as a tool. I'm not amazingly skilled or practiced at using the tool just yet. And perhaps one of the ways to get skilled and practiced at using it is just to use it and keep using it and see what happens, and try and educate myself by listening to what other people have done and listen to some of their experiences and try and learn from my experiences and try and be objective and real about, is that getting me the result that I was looking for? Is this helping me to critique my ideas, or is it just an echo chamber? And so far it's been useful to help me critique some of my ideas. So maybe there isn't a resolve to this one in terms of is it appropriate, because the answer so far is I don't know, because I haven't got enough data at the moment to answer that. So far, the limited data I have would tell me that it's useful. It's useful, but I need to still have my human input into it. It's useful as long as I don't rely on it. It's useful as all the time I acknowledge that it's a tool for me to use. A carpenter can't chop up wood with their bare hands. They have to use a saw and blade and chisel and hammers and all the other tools that they have. And we don't say anything to the carpenter about, what do you mean you can't make this wooden frame or put this shelf up with just your hands and just yourself, by yourself? What do you mean you have to use tools? So you're outsourcing the work. You're not doing it yourself. They are doing it themselves. They know, they have the mastery of how to use the tools. Is that something I'm doing? It might be a grandiose claim to make, but I think I am using a tool to try and scrutinize and sharpen, mainly scrutinize the ideas that I've had, not the ideas that it's come up with. I am listening to the ideas because, of course, the counterpoints are ideas, but they are counterpoints that allow me to then expand my own thinking. It has, as I say, numerous times come up with things that I've thought, yeah, I'm not sure if I would have got to that, so kind of thank you. But it's still me inputting, it's still me prompting, it's still me presenting my ideas and my fundamental core idea of you know yourself. So this episode is essentially way too long already, but is me just acknowledging and saying there is a tool that I'm using. Keep that in mind when you listen to the next episodes, which are going to be me critiquing some of the possible vulnerabilities within you know yourself. If you stay with me this long, thank you very much. This is a bit longer than usual. Thank you. Catch you all soon. Cheers. Bye bye.